Worm sign. Is it worm sign?
Yes, worm. Big one. Calling harvester pad 9. Worm sign.
Worm sign. He's in that cave. Yee-haw! I got him, SpongeBob!
Sandy? That's not the worm. That's his tongue.
Oh, this is the tongue, and the whole thing is the worm. Run for your life!
Worms. Big worms. Big worms in fiction. Let's talk about them. Snakes, too, a bit. I've made Talking Squid video essays about spirals and forks. Now I'm tackling the phallus, the linga, the penis, the wiener. The big takeaway is it usually happens to live alongside female genitalia too. The yoni, the vagina, the beaver. So they gotta learn to get along or else vagina dentata. If you haven't seen Tremors, you should see Tremors. The sequels are okay sometimes, but the first movie is the only one I insist upon. It's also the only one with Kevin Bacon in it. Kevin Bacon's town in Nevada is being attacked by worms, and not little worms, like fire hose thick worms. But what? Those fire hose thick worms are actually just the tongues of fire truck thick worms.
Must be a million of them. Nope, just one.
They're Freudian, Lovecraftian yoni-linga. In the sequels, they're called graboids. The townsfolk have to hide on rocks or on roofs, sorta floor is lava style, because the graboids can sense vibrations in the ground. Tremor rules. Watch it. I was reminded of graboids watching the new second season of The Mandalorian. In the premiere, Mr. Mandalorian helps a town on Tatooine fight a giant worm called a crate dragon. He teams up with the local Tusken Raiders to drag the crate dragon out of its giant cave vagina and blow it up. But it doesn't work out. Mr. Mandalorian has to go all Disney's Hercules, letting the crate dragon eat him vagina dentata style, and then killing it from the inside. Hercules' Hydra is kinda like worms, but Hercules also fought straight-up snakes when he was a straight-up baby. Greece and Rome fought snakes all the time, like Laocoon and his sons. Snakes are worm-like and phallic. And they've got a yonic thing going on too. Have you seen the movie Anaconda? It's pretty good. This guy's knife looks pretty manly, but he drops it when the psycho reveals he's fishing for this 40-foot snake. He was out-phallused. Near the end of the movie, the psycho gets eaten by the anaconda, vagina dentata style. The guy and girl duo defeat the snake with the most phallic and seminal explosion you've ever seen.
Push her on the side, hit the hinges.
So snakes play the penis-vagina game in fiction as well. But giant worms have a more fun niche use in pop culture, sort of land sharks.
Land shark. Cleverest species of them all.
Maybe worms are used in video games more often than movies, like Moldugas in Breath of the Wild here. Giant worms also show up in tabletop role-playing games, like the Dungeons & Dragons monster manuals. But I want to talk about a movie. I've been into movies lately. The book Dune is 600 pages, and begins a series of books as long as Well, one of these giant sandworms. I haven't read any of those books, but I've watched the 1984 movie Dune, which is 2.25 hours. Most of it is exposition.
A beginning is a very delicate time.
Know then that it is the year 10,191.
Oh yes. I forgot to tell you.
The spice exists on only one planet in the entire universe. A desolate, dry planet with vast deserts. Hidden away within the rocks of these deserts are people known as the Tremors, who have long held the prophecy that a man would come, a Messiah, who would lead them to true freedom. The planet is Arrakis, also known as Dune.
As much exposition as there is, the plot is relatively simple. There's a substance called spice, which is the best thing ever. It's only found on one planet, called Dune, and the protagonist joins the planet's native people as their messiah. He learns from them how to ride sandworms, and they learn from him how to really ride sandworms, because these primitives always need civilized folks to show them how it's done, don't they? It's the white-eyed man's burden. Then he appropriates their blue eyes, too. So Dune is basically Avatar, but instead of riding one of these thingies, you ride one of these thingies. But these aren't quite the only worms in Dune. There's also, this thingy. The Dune fandom wiki says it's a navigator, a human who uses so much spice for space travel and has so many spice orgies, they turn into, this thingy. To me, it looks like a warning. Sure, spice is great, but if you abuse it, you're a phallus with labias on your face. For our protagonist to really get the most out of spice, he's gotta encompass all the genitalia imagery. This chosen guy's got feminine aura, I tell ya. He's the only boy born to a mother supposed to have only girls.
You thought only of a duke's desire for a son?
I'll pay for all my own mistakes.
And your son will pay with you. Did you really think you could bear the Kwisatz Haderach?
His little sister is born as a reverend mother and grows up super fast.
Alia was born with all the knowledge and powers of a reverend mother.
Paul's sister Alia matured at a frightening rate. Her small body harbored tremendous powers.
He excels in a painful challenge which only women can take.
Put your hand in the box.
You must not fear. Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death that brings total obliteration.
No woman, child, ever withstood that much.
His romance subplot, GF, gives him the water of life, sandworm saliva, which makes women into revered mothers, but kills the men who drink it. He survives and gets more insight than those females get.
There is a place terrifying to us, to women. It is said a man will come, the Kwisatz Haderach. He will go where we cannot. Many men have tried.
They tried and failed?
They tried and died.
I have to drink the water of life.
No, Paul, please. I've seen the men who have tried. I've seen how they died.
I'm dead to everyone unless I try to become what I may be. Only the water of life will free what can save us.
The worm is the spice. The spice is the worm.
Traveling without moving. Now I truly control the worm and the spice.
The Dune fandom wiki clarifies the sandworm's life cycle produces spice. In the end, one of these ultra-phallic sandworms eats the evil guy vagina dentata style. You know he's evil, 'cause he's ugly.
He who controls the spice controls the universe.
Spice blends engendered imagery into something powerfully androgynous, and misusing it leaves you sorta fetal. The Dune books might be deeper than that. All I know for sure is Jodorowsky should totally get to direct a Dune movie. Lynch was a good choice, but dealing with all these phalluses and labias, I want to give him to the guy who can film Christ pooping gold and make it sort of work.
Podorowski was ahead of his time. I think the big problem was that he was bringing in a lot of ideas which take people decades to process.
Where does all this imagery come from? Duh. But people have been thinking about their bodies for a long time. So sometimes you get stories like this one about Shiva's Lingam. I read this story once in a class I took about the gods of India and managed to find it in a Quora answer. There are a few different versions, so I'm trusting this guy who claims to be a Hindu priest. In the ancient times, there were some folks in the forest worshipping Shiva, as you do. Shiva decided to drop by, playing the classic pretend to be homeless to check how nice people are routine, and he really hammed it up. Shiva took the form of Nilalohita, a deformed appearance. He was naked and radiant, with ashes covering his body. He stood there holding his penis, lingam, in his hand, performing all sorts of unsavory acts. Some of the sages' wives were into it, but the local rishis, supposedly enlightened people, didn't like it at all. To be fair, Shiva's Maya illusions were overwhelming. So the rishis said to Shiva, "May yo dick fall off." It did, like a blazing rod. Wherever it went, it burnt the place. It went to heaven, the nether regions, and the earth, but it could not remain stationary. All the people, the rishis, and the gods were distressed and unhappy at that time, as you do. They all betook themselves to Brahma for refuge. Brahma said, "Hey, you fucked up. That was a classic pretend to be homeless to check how nice people are routine, and you weren't nice enough. Heaven, the nether regions, and the earth are all unpeaceful now, and Shiva's wife Parvati is gonna have to fix all this." You can guess what Parvati did next. She took the form of the yoni, uterus or vagina. Lord Shiva inserted his phallus, lingam, firmly there. Parvati, in the form of a yoni and an arrow, formed the pedestal, wherein the phallus shall be installed with Vedic mantras. Lord Shiva became exceedingly pleased, as you do, and said, "Apart from Parvati, no woman could ever contain my lingam. When she holds my lingam, peace is established everywhere. With the peaceful establishment of the lingam, peace and welfare abounded. By worshipping this lingam, worldly happiness is achieved, as well as the best in the afterlife." So, Dune is weird. And it's weird that so many movies and cartoons and video games and tabletop RPGs have the same imagery of wieners and beavers.
Look, it's a necklace! S for SpongeBob, or S for Sandy.
But humanity has been this weird for a long time, and it's not going anywhere. That's the stuff I like to think about here at Thinkster.
Now this is what I call a rodeo!
Watch Tremors. Tell your friends to watch Tremors. Support me on Patreon. Bye-bye.